Welcome to Moms with a Call. We're not here to preach, convert, or fix you. We're here to listen.
We're McKenzie
and Rebecca, two women with messy stories, honest questions, and a quiet hope that maybe Jesus looks a lot more like love than we were ever shown. If you've ever wondered if there's a place for you in all of this, there is. Come, have a seat at the table. You're safe here. You're welcome here. Let's begin.
Hello, welcome back to Moms with a Call. We are so excited. We have a special guest with us today. Rebecca, do you want to introduce?
Yes, this is the Sterling Griggs, the godfather of my children. Very special person. Today we're going to hear a pretty powerful story and testimony. So with that being said, I guess we'll just let you have the floor because it's not one of those stories where we ask you a question and then you fill us in a little bit.
Sure. I mean, but you guys feel free to bust it any time.
Oh, we will.
Clarification
We'll
or whatever.
bust
Okay.
We will.
So what, I have about 2 hours?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because everybody listens for the full 2 hours of a podcast. So I'm Sterling Griggs, 55 years old. I know I don't look it. But when I was born in 1970, back in the day, they determined an irregular heartbeat with me, so some kind of what they call a murmur, which is not uncommon at all in children. And most of them outgrow it. However, for me, I did not. At age of 4, when this murmur was still pretty prevalent, started going to see pediatric cardiologists, and they diagnosed something called aortic stenosis and insufficiency, which basically my aortic valve overlaps and then leaked. So it was leaky valve. And we think instead of a 3-cuss valve, it was 2. Those medical records have been lost, unfortunately. We've tried to, can't find them. But anyway, so from that point on, every year I had to go to a regular checkup. The doctor said, no sports for you, nothing on a competitive team. So I grew up having to watch my older brothers play sports. But I mean, I adjusted by doing things in the backyard, things in the driveway. And really, I didn't know that anything was necessarily wrong with me. I did have moments where if I did go way too hard, I get a little more fatigued and maybe even sometimes have to take a day of rest.
Oh, wow.
My mom would say, you overdid it. Mm-hmm. And I would also feel like this throbbing in my shoulder if I went too hard. But I was still really active. The first procedure I ever had done was when I was in 2nd grade. It was a heart cath. They go into the bend of your leg, and they went up and saw, yep, it's exactly what we thought it was all along. So what we're going to do is we're just going to wait. And when you're in your 50s or 60s and it gets bad, we'll take care of it then. So there was no need to do anything at the time. So I grew up with that, high school, even going into college, just having regular checkups every year, but everything was great. I worked out a lot. I stayed in shape. Nobody really in my... unless you were in my circle, knew that I ever had a heart condition, because the last thing I ever wanted to do was to limit me or make people look at me different. Mm-hmm. And so everything was great. Get out of college, working on a master's degree in theology and working at some churches, doing some things like that. And then it was in May of 1996, I was 26 years old, went and had just a regular checkup. These things last 30 minutes. They listen, they run an EKG and say, you're good, we'll see you next year. This one lasted 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
And they kept running all these different kind of tests. So I kind of knew something was going on. And
did you feel physically bad at that point when you went in for that appointment, or you just felt how you typically do?
I'd never felt better in my life.
Really?
I was running multiple times a day, working out.
And so you were allowed to run at this point?
I was allowed to do some things, yes.
But you maybe did a little more than you were? Or no?
Of course.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah,
okay.
Of course. But my doctor was like, listen, the only thing I don't really want you to do, like the real heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. So, I was not a bodybuilder, not a problem.
You're not?
Well, I used to be. You should have seen me. Not with these sticks I call legs. But
no.
I sat in his office and he said, listen, I'm just going to go and break it out with you. Your aortic valve is failing. Your heart has swollen in size. You're asymptomatic, which means you're not feeling a thing. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those deals where if we don't do something the next year or so, it will kill you.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, okay. So
and you're 26.
I am, yeah.
How did it feel to get that news at 26?
It was pretty surreal. Little fear, of course, because I knew what was coming. I knew I was going to have an open heart surgery.
But you thought like 50s, 60s. You didn't think 26.
Sure, and I mean, quite possibly, I could have pushed myself into it by my active lifestyle, but I lived.
Right.
Yeah, you
right.
want to, yeah.
Look at some of the sidelines. So there was some fear. I was in Winston-Salem at the time, so got linked up with a really good surgeon out of Forsyth Medical Center. He'd been doing it for years, and so had to move home, live with mom and dad at the time because, I mean, my recovery, months, so hadn't met Kelly yet, so I'm still, single guy, hottest fish in the market, but nobody caught me yet.
Oh, love it.
But please don't edit that part out.
Oh,
No,
we
we
won't.
won't.
Don't
Okay.
worry.
No.
So, long story short, had the surgery early June and went really well. What they wound up doing is the pulmonary valve is very close to aortic valve. And due to proximity, they'll often just replace both of them. So I got human cadaver valves donated from, somebody who passed away and donated it. Somebody asked me one time later, do you ever meet the person that donated your valves? I'm like,
Oh.
won't you think about that for a second before I answer that question? Don't know who they are. So anyways.
Spirit?
Yeah, sure. It's some at the cemetery. So the surgery went really well. Came home a few days later, just rehabbed really, really hard. Tried to eat, sort of well. It was never arteries. So it wasn't like, oh, you can't eat fried foods anymore. You can't do that. It's like you just have to watch out for the structure. And so for me, it was just staying in shape. And I got to the point I was walking like 10 miles a day, doing all this kind of stuff. And then I was finally got to the end of the summer, I moved out, back in with some friends. I was able to kind of move on and thought about, what am I going to do now? I'm like more than 2/3 of the way through my grad degree, but I was now fascinated with medicine. So I decided to become a paramedic, thinking I might go to PA school and work in cardiothoracic medicine. So became a paramedic over the next couple of years while working other jobs. And during that time, I met Kelly. But health-wise, I'm great. Med school didn't pan out. That's fine. Went back into ministry, working with students, and I was golden. I was really, really good up until right around 2019. So by then, we've been married for a while. We have 4 kids. We have kids in high school. I'm up here working in Wilmington, teaching high school at a private school. And it was November of 2019, around that time. We'd only been in Wilmington a couple of years. We moved up from Southport, and I still don't have a regular family doctor. And I was like, I probably need to do that. So got into this doctor's office, took me as a patient. He's like, hey, given your history, you might want to consider getting a pneumonia vaccine because, it can affect the heart. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll get it. And I had a really bad reaction to it.
Oh, no.
Not just localized, but systemic. I got really sick, uncontrollable chills, and other times high fever. I just felt awful. So that went on for like a week or so, and then I finally died down, and I felt like, okay, I'm back to normal. And at this time as well, I did have a cardiologist up here in Wilmington, still a really good friend to this day, and he had found out that throughout the years from the previous surgery on my aorta coming out, was the aortic arch, I developed an aneurysm. And it was 53 millimeters, I believe.
And you didn't know. You had no...
I know. He did a full scan and saw it on there. So at that time, I was taking some special meds that function to kind of strengthen the artery wall and not make it grow. But it was like that big. It's pretty good size sucker. But I couldn't feel it. I felt fine. And so going into Christmas is 2019. Gosh, I got out for Christmas break, and I'm feeling a little tired. I'm feeling not 100%, but I just taught a whole semester. That's teaching is tiring.
You have kids.
Sure,
You're tired.
We were traveling back to Winston-Salem for Christmas. So we came back Christmas Eve, did our normal Christmas Eve stuff, did Christmas Day with the kids. The next day I wake up and got out of bed, walked to the kitchen to make coffee, and I was out of breath. I was like, this is strange. And it turns out for the next week or so, I was struggling. I was wheezing some. I felt like I had asthma. But I was like, it's that pneumonia shot. It gave me pneumonia. That was my assumption.
Right.
I was wrong, but I thought that's what it was. So I actually went back to school to teach, and it just felt terrible every day. And I remember coming home that first Friday of the week back, and my son's out in the cul-de-sac shooting hoops. So I got there and I go to shoot basketball for like 30 seconds, and I'm grabbing my knees. I couldn't breathe. I mean, I absolutely couldn't breathe.
Oh my goodness.
So Kelly, my wife, said, all right, we're getting in touch with Tim, cardiologist. We're gonna reach out to him. So texted him, and he said, all right, don't stop being stupid. Chill out this weekend. Get you in Monday. We'll see what's going on. And so.
And how old are you at this point?
I'm almost 50. I'm 49.
Okay.
So I've had 23 plus years since the prior surgery. I didn't know the shelf life for cadaver valves is usually 15.
Oh,
so I've had these things for like 23, 24 years. But a lot of it was I really tried hard to take care of myself and do the right thing. So over the weekend, I just didn't feel well. In fact, I woke up one night out of breath just from my sleep. So I'm like, okay, I'm glad I'm going to see, my cardiologist. And but that Saturday, actually, I had, it's that Friday. I'm gasping for breath playing basketball. The next day, Kelly actually had to go out of town for the day with our daughter to an event. So I was instructed to stay at home, which I did. But I'm sitting at home, and I'm like, there's a weekend clinic at my regular doctor's office. I know he's not there, but somebody will be there. Let me get some tests before I go to see my doctor Monday. So when all they did was a chest X-ray, because that's all they could really do. But it turns out that it was a nurse practitioner. She was working that day there. She was contract working, and she walked in the room the first time to meet me, and she looked at me and she kind of cocked her head and said, "How long have you had asthma?" I said, "I don't have asthma." She goes, "You're wheezing." I said, "Yeah, that's why I'm here."
Yeah.
And I kind of told her my history a little bit. She goes, "Well, I used to be a cardiothoracic nurse practitioner. I used to work with PESO. Let's take a look at what we got going." So she ran the x-rays and everything. And she said, "Your x-rays look terrible." She said, "I see something going on there." And actually, yeah, that's probably the aneurysm. She said, "I see some other abnormalities, and you definitely have fluid in your lungs, which means you're going into congestive heart failure. You really need to go see your heart doctor." I said, I'm going Monday. So this was Saturday. So the next day, Sunday, we decided instead of going to church, we're going to stay home. My wife was like, "We don't know. We don't want you around anybody. Could make you sick, whatever." So we're sitting in our screened-in porch, drinking coffee, and the phone rang, and it was my cardiologist. And he had just walked out of, I think he was at church. He walked in the lobby. I guess he got a notification about my x-ray the day before, because, it's all network now. He looked at it and he said, "Hey, can you be at my house in an hour?" So I said, "Sure." So we drove to his house, and he met me in the driveway. He said, "Don't get out." And long story short, he said the valve, the aortic valve, it's almost non-functional, basically shredded. Your aneurysm looks terrible. 8 o'clock in the morning, you're in my office. So the next morning I went and did all the major tests, and sure enough, yeah, it's not looking great. So I went actually to school to teach. After one period, phone rang again. It's him. He's like, "Go to the hospital right now, please. We're going to admit you because there's intervention has to be done." So go home, pack up. Me and Kelly go to the hospital. They checked me in. They did another whole round of battery of tests. They did different tests where they actually put me to sleep a little bit to put a tube down to get a closer look at the heart. They did the heart cath. So it revealed everything that they said, yeah, you've got to have another heart surgery. Obviously, Wilmington probably was the best place for that, specifically because of the aneurysm. So they reached out to Wake Forest Medical Center there in Winston-Salem. It's my hometown. The surgeon there was supposedly top notch. They reached out to him, "Are you willing to do this?" He's like, "Absolutely." So the next night, they transported me by ambulance to Winston-Salem. And a couple days later, I underwent another open heart surgery where Dr. Neil Kahn was the surgeon. It was so cool because I didn't know he did all this stuff. When I first met him, when I got there, I was like, "So, hey, by the way, I got this aneurysm here. And while you're in there, if you could fix that too, that'd be pretty cool." He's like, "I'll see what I can do." This guy actually pioneered the procedure to fix those things. He created this mesh. He's just this random doctor that's like, I'm telling him what to do. And he's like, "I'll see what I can do." And he is a very good friend now. He's just a wonderful human being. We love him to death. So he did. He put in an artificial arch. I got a human pulmonary valve, and I got a pig aortic valve. So I used to say, now every time I burp, I taste bacon. I'd get barbecue. I'd say,
Love it.
We get a barbecue sandwich and be like, "Uncle Lenny, is that you?" So I didn't, but it was all, but I felt good.
Yeah.
They fixed it. I felt good. Also, they did a bypass while they were in there. Not because I had any blockages, but It's like, you've had so much going on. Let's make sure you have some healthy routes going on there. So that was January of 2020.
Okay. And you were 50, you said, at this point
not
still?
quite, not quite
49.
50. Yeah,
Okay.
49.
So, well, you're telling this is like, it just, and I'm sure for you, you've told us probably so many times, but what was your mental state through all? I mean, this is really heavy stuff to go through.
I mean, it is. I think that I didn't really feel like there was any overt danger. I mean, we were seeing doctors in the top of their field, right?
Yeah.
I'd taken very good care of myself. So I wasn't dealing with high blood pressure. I wasn't dealing with like all these other issues that can come from being a heart patient. It was just this.
Yeah.
This and just maybe a bad case of like stubbornness that you would get me into trouble because I would wait too long to get treatment. So, but no, it's a good question. I mean, my faith was really strong. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous or scared, but you can only control what you can control. So if I'm going to get all bent out of shape and so anxious or fearful of something that I can't change, that's a waste of my energy.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put my energy to my wife and my family, the kids, thinking positive things, already planning for like, okay, 4 days I get to go home.
Oh, yeah.
And then I want to go back to work, which I did. I went back to work middle of February, full schedule teaching.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, these were goals I'd set for myself just because if you stay in the moment, you'll get stuck.
Yeah.
And another thing is, too, after these surgeries, they wake you up in the intensive care unit the day of. You still got tubes coming out of you. You feel like death. You're coming off of anesthesia. You're in a bad situation, and they want you to get up and walk. And that's really hard to do because you hurt everywhere. I mean, after they crack your chest open and put it back together, sneezing is like the most fearful thing in the world.
I'm sure.
And so you're achy, you're hurting, you feel fluish, you're grumpy, and then they want you to walk. But that's what you have to do. And so for me, that was non-negotiable. I mean, the second I could get out of that bed, I got out of that bed. Usually not the day of. They'll wake you up, they'll talk to you. Then the next morning, the day after surgery, you're up. Wow. So I would get up and walk. And I remember this surgery in 2020, I get up and I'm walking around. And I mean, I'm dying. I mean, I'm sweating like a pig. I mean, my body's trembling. I'm cramping up all over. And my wife is like, listen, let's just do half a lap. I said, I'm doing a whole lap. I've got to do the whole lap because it was so important for me to do everything I could to stay out of that bed and to get better. Yeah. And which is what I did. So a lot of it was just willpower. Growing up watching two older brothers play all these sports and having some on the sidelines, that wasn't fun. I didn't take that sitting down. And I'm very competitive, but mainly competitive with myself. I have high expectations for myself. And I mean, my wife, Kelly, she's a nurse. So she's very familiar with medical things. So she understood a lot what I was going through. She understood a lot of the medical terminology and things. So I had an amazing advocate there with me all the time, which is what makes the next part of the story a whole lot more intense, but also successful for me because of her knowledge. So picking back up, go back to work February of 2020. Things are great. Then, of course, COVID hits. And so, the world shuts down and I'm having to teach remotely. And then the whole next year, 20 to 21 school year, everybody's got masked up and it was just really rough. But I felt fine. I was doing good. And then summer of 21, I quit teaching and went to work with a fella doing remodeling and things because I'd done that for a while. And so I went to work with him and I was doing some stuff, probably more heavy work than I should have done. Also, there was crawl spaces. I was exposed to all this kind of crap, that was in the environment, which probably wasn't good for me. I'm still healing. That doesn't happen overnight, even though the exterior looks fine. So our thoughts, I probably got exposed to a lot of outside things that could like attack my body. I mean, that's the assumption. That's just what we think. So going into 2022, starts to roll around. I'm like, oh, I got to get out of this job. I want to go back into teaching. But I had to wait till the summer. But I noticed something early 2022. I noticed that this is 2 years after the 2020 surgery, my heart just felt a little different. Now, I wasn't having fast or slow beats. They were strong. So, let's say if you ever run up and down the stairs and you feel like, oh, my heart's about to beat on my chest. That's what it felt like, but at rest. But it wasn't all the time. I'd have moments where I'm just chilling. It's like, ooh, you can almost see it beating, but then it would stop. So I kind of chalked it up to anxiety. I hated my job. I didn't want to be there. My wife was actually in a job that was tough for her. So, we got a kid in college now. So we're like, oh, there's so much going on. So I just thought it was just my body's way of just kind of handling stress and anxiety. And as the year went on, it got a little progressively more. So summer rolls around. Got to get my gallbladder out because now it's giving me problems. So I got to get my gallbladder out, which you say, well, that's another portal of entry for infection. So keep in mind, my body's getting exposed to all this stuff, which we didn't realize at the time was having an effect on the prosthetic part. And that's the main assumption that they had.
Okay.
So the beats are still going on. I got a new job. I got a job at a private middle school, teaching 7th grade. And that fall was great. I got COVID that fall, so there's another factor. But by the time Christmas or Thanksgiving and stuff rolled around, I was not feeling well. I was feeling this pretty constantly.
And was your doctor aware of the strong beats?
Well, he was. When I went in like late spring to see him for a checkup, I wasn't symptomatic at the time. All my tests looked pretty good. There wasn't really anything that said, okay, this is out of order, out of line, that we need to take a deeper dive into it. And so, but then by the time we get around November, so I'm feeling rough. And we put him in the loop, and we kept him in the loop. And he says, hey, listen, if you need to come in, we'll try to get you in, whatever. But I'm just thinking, it's got to be, I don't know, it's got to be stress. I'm not taking care of myself. So get around Christmas, do the Christmas trip back to Winston. I just felt horrible the whole time. Just didn't feel well at all. Get back, start going back to school, still not feeling well. And finally, I called him and said, I got to get in to see a doc. This something is not right. And I keep in mind, my wife is strongly urging this for weeks and weeks.
Sure.
But I'm doing what I do because I'm a guy. And so it was, I don't know, middle of January, I guess we got in to see Dr. Winslow here. Am I allowed to cuss on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did in my testimony.
Okay. So we get in the office. Kelly, my wife's with me. But we go to sit down. He puts the stethoscope on my chest for like 2-3 seconds. He looks up and he goes, oh, shit. And I'm like, well, good morning to you, Doc.
Great. That's exactly what I want to hear.
This is fantastic. What in the world? So I said, well, can you tell me what that means? So he said, listen, we got stuff going on there. Don't know exactly what it is. We're gonna take you upstairs and do an echocardiogram, which is like a sonogram on the heart, but it gives you a great picture. He said, I feel like we have something bad wrong with that aortic valve that got replaced. Let's get you upstairs. So I go upstairs and they start to run the test. And he comes up there and visualize it. They never come up. You have technicians run these, then the doctors interpret them later. So he sits in on it. And he said, there it is. And he pointed to the screen. I could see the screen. And I saw you can colorize the blood flow. And I saw the blood flow, and he says it's not supposed to be going that way. He said, you have a fistula. So what a fistula is, a rupture. So where you have the aortic arch coming out, it runs right beside the pulmonary artery. There had been a rupture in the prosthetic part, probably caused by infection of some sort, weakened it. And not only it ruptured, but it ruptured into the pulmonary. So it's like two things together, you just poke them right through. And I was having backflow. I was having pulmonary hypertension, which is not good on your heart. And took my blood pressure. It's like, oh, you're like 70/40. What in the world? I felt fine.
Oh, wow.
So he said, this is big. We need to get this fixed. So he got right back on the phone with Dr. Neil Kahn, who had done my surgery a few years before. Dr. Kahn's like, bring him on. We're waiting. So this time we got to ride in the car. So Kelly and I rode in the car, and it was a great trip. We listened to all the best music possible. We laughed, we cried a little bit. I got a chance to say goodbye to the kids. Not goodbye.
Yeah,
okay, this is
right.
what's going on. Because now I got 2 in college, and we had an amazing neighborhood. They came together. We had an aunt from Nebraska came and stayed for almost a month because I was in the hospital that long. Stayed with our 2 youngest in high school, but in the meantime, everybody just kind of rallied together.
Yeah.
So we go, and the initial plan was they got with the head of cardiology there at Wake Forest, and he said, I got an idea. Instead of cracking you open, you have a hole. Now, whenever they can go in and do valve replacement, they can go into your leg. It's called a TAVR procedure. They can even go through your wrist.
Wow.
So let's do that. Let's go in there And instead of another valve, let's take a plug. Let's see if we can't plug that hole. I'm like, great. So we had to wait like an extra week. So we went back to my mother-in-law's house and just kind of hung out for a few days because they didn't want us to come back to Wilmington. They wanted to get the team together, everything set up. So like into January, like January 30th, 31st, I had that, and it was not successful. They got up into the hole was too big. So, okay, what's next? So Dr. Kahn said, well, sorry, I got to crack you open again. So that was scheduled for February 2nd, 2 days later. So stayed in the hospital, let this heal a little bit. February 2nd rolls around. That morning I get prepped for surgery. Kelly spent the night in the room with him the night before. We just, I probably was the smartest thing in the world. I had my in-laws bring me like a quarter pounder with cheese and fries. Not like it was the last meal or something. I was like, I'm hungry. Which probably wasn't the best thing on my system at the time.
Yeah. It was, what is it, when it feeds your spirit?
Yeah.
It's spiritual food.
Made me happy.
Exactly.
It really did. Brought me peace. So I remember going down into pre-op, and Kelly's there, and there's nurse anesthetist there. And Kelly had worked with some of these women before. She knew my nurse anesthetist. Can't remember her name. Grace. And so what a great name, Grace. So I remember going into the OR, and you walk in there, they've already given you something to kind of like calm you down, but I'm like, they always ask you to, once you get in there, to count down from 10. And I'm like, I'm going to get to 1. I never did. You never do. But I'm like, I'm in there.
That
like,
willpower. That's
I'm in there, like I'm telling dad jokes, and
Of course.
I'm trying to do my thing. And I looked at Grace and I said, hey, take care of Kelly for me, will you? I'll be out of this in no time. Put the mask on, told me to count down, 10, 9, 8. That's it.
You got to 8.
Yeah, I think.
The goal
that's
was
all I
1, you got
remember.
to 8.
That's all I remember. And really what happened over the next month was this journey that we didn't ask for. We would have never asked for, wished it on anybody else. But at the same time, it was really pretty remarkable and incredible, everything that occurred during that time. So I go off the surgery. They have to do all this stuff to open your chest up. And from the moment they started doing that, things kind of went sideways. I went to cardiac arrest multiple times. But they had they can put the paddles right on your chest, right on your heart. So it wasn't like I was gone for minutes or hours. They were able to get me back.
Was it because of the trauma to the body? That's why you were going into cardiac
Trauma to the
arrest?
heart.
Yeah. So like it wasn't, would you have gone into it had you not been in the surgery?
Had I not had the surgery, I would have died
Yeah.
but probably sooner than later.
Oh my gosh.
This fistula, they're not common at all. They're very rare. My surgeon had never known anybody survive one. Did I say that right? And he'd never operated on one before, and he's world renowned.
It's incredible.
And they've
I've
studied.
said wow like 800 times this entire episode.
It's going to get
People are
more
going to be like,
intense.
Mackenzie, shut up. Sorry, continue.
You're
continue.
good. You're good. It's your world. I'm just living in it. Okay. So we now I don't know any of this, guys. I'm heavily sedated, and my world is going sideways, and I have no idea. And Kelly lived through it all. My kids lived through it all. She was never not by my side unless it was night. She had to go to sleep. Went back to her mom's house. But it was just an incredible journey. They went in there. The surgery was successful. They were able to put a new arch, some new valves. But my body just didn't want to work. So for a full week, and I know I probably won't get all the details right, for a full week, my chest is open. And they didn't close me up. Now, I'm not in the OR anymore. I'm in an intensive care unit, but it's open. And they've got it covered, But I've got it open, and because my things just kept happening. They started to see a blood clot, so they had to wash it out. My kidney started to shut down, so I started to go on dialysis. Started going through other, my body just didn't want to work anymore. And I started having these things called cytokine storms or something like that, where I would just have these just mad rushes of these conditions. Just imagine if your blood pressure would spike super high all of a sudden, or your blood sugar would drop really low all of a sudden. And I'm not saying it was specifically those things, but that's like an example. My body just was like, I don't like you anymore. And it just stared fighting against itself.
Well, it's been through so much too. You're probably tired.
I mean, physically, I think I was. Like I said, I have no recollection of any of this. I'm in a medically induced coma this entire time. And it was just a really heavy scene from my understanding. My body just didn't respond. I went at the hospital weighing 160. At one point during that week after, I was up to 220, the fluid gain. I had 21 different pumping medicine in me.
That is insane.
Trying to keep me alive. And I mean, I just wasn't really responding to the care. I was doing my best to hold on. I mean, because the second part of the story, there was a fight. I was fighting. I knew I was fighting. I just didn't know what for. So I'm in there. This is going on. Kelly's there. We've got tons of doctors and nurses coming in all the time. The care team was amazing. Dr. Khan, greatest surgeon on the planet, in my opinion. He was always in constant contact with Kelly. Any questions she could call any point in time, he would answer. If she was like, hey, they suggested this one thing, I'm not sure, she'd call him. He would tell the care team what they couldn't do. So he was very jealous over my care. She was an amazing advocate. One of the things coming out of the situation, we've had a chance to speak at least one small conference after that, was about the idea of how important advocacy is for patients. Because the average person that comes in for a procedure, their loved one that's there with them, they don't have medical knowledge or training. And they're not going to know. If a doctor comes in and says, we're thinking about this, they're going to be, okay, you're the doctor. But is it the best thing? And again, we're not knocking any of the medical care. But a case like mine, there was like 50 different things they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I was some experimental doll, but it was like, well, this might work, this might not work. And there's one night, a group of doctors came in and they're telling my wife they need to do all this stuff. And she's like, my chest is still open. And so
Are you okay?
she called Dr. Khan, and Dr. Khan got on the phone with everybody and said, listen, I don't think what you want to do is a good idea. They want to do another intervention. And he said, his lab work's looking kind of weird right now. We can't figure out what's going on. So I don't want any more stuff done to him. He's my patient. My name's on the chart. Leave him alone. He told my wife, he said, tomorrow morning I'm going to come in. I'm going to close his chest. And we're going to see if he can heal and move on. So the next morning he does come in. And before he touched me or even took me back to the OR to close my chest, he got to the bottom of the weird labs. And basically, heparin is a very common medicine used for surgical procedures. So I was on heparin. Turns out I was having an allergic reaction to heparin, which was causing my body to not heal properly. And had they done any more procedures, I would have had bleeding they couldn't stop. So...
and at this point, Dr. Khan came in. He was closing your chest kind of more as like a courtesy.
Pretty
like
much
to the family.
Because, you're not going to do anything else in me, right? Having my chest open is not going to solve anything. Not going to get better that way.
And when you say your chest is open, you mean like the skin is open?
So after you have, when you have open heart surgery, they cut the skin, then they crack the sternum, and they pull you open. You have these little forks holding your chest open. So that's what it was.
Wow. But they obviously had covering to prevent infection and to try to prevent infection.
Yeah, that didn't totally happen, but they did their best. But you can't fault them, because when you're open for like that, you have an open wound.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what environment you're in. It's impossible to keep it totally sterile. But he came down, he got the effects of the heparin thing reversed. And
by the grace of God, he found that infection.
Totally
How did he find that? And maybe some other people missed it.
He's brilliant for one, but he would wake up in the middle of the night and check my chart at home. He would call in during the night to check on me.
What an incredible doctor.
He really is. He really is. He gets a Christmas card at Christmas now.
Oh, good.
He's part of the family.
Forever.
Yeah, he is. But he had a sense. He knew. And he stayed in constant contact with Kelly, my wife, and he was always there. Answered questions, very thorough. So, and I think for him, it just became personal. He had done the previous surgery with the artificial arch. The fact that it ruptured was not his fault. But he did not want anyone else to fix what had gone wrong. So I think he took it really personal. But he also loved me. I loved him. He loved my family. I hugged the guy. We tell him we love him.
Try not to cry.
I know, me too. I'm like, oh.
And he's if you ever meet him, he's not standoffish, but he's very feared in the medical world. Feared is in respected.
Like reverence.
Reverence and stuff. And I walk in and I say, what's up, doc? We hug it out and say we love each other. And people are like, what is going on here? Who is this man that, but that's just the relationship. And I give my wife all the credit. because, how can you not like her for one?
True.
She's very huggable. But anyways, so they closed my chest, reversed the effects of the heparin, closed my chest, and the waiting game was on. And I started to get better. My vitals slowly started to improve. My reliance on some of the machines started to go away. They were able to take me off of dialysis. Now, this wasn't in a day. It took a period of time. I'm in a coma for about 2.5 weeks total. The last few days of it, I was kind of in and out of consciousness. I do remember some things, like I remember I had a pump put in my leg right here, because even after they fixed everything, the right side of my heart decided it didn't want to pump. So I had an artificial pump. And I remember them taking it out because it's in an artery. There's no way to sew it up. So the only way to stop the bleeding is to have somebody with their fists and lean on you until the bleeding stops, however long that takes. So, I'm intubated, so I've got a tube in. My arms are kind of strapped down because, the last thing you want is a patient pulling wires. But I wake up and I'm like, okay, this really hurts. I don't know what's going on. And so I saw people in the room. I recognized some of them from the medical team, some of my wife, some of my mother-in-law. I'm pissed. I'm like, okay, this is not okay. And I'm sitting there telling them, you guys got to stop. At least I thought it was. I couldn't talk. I didn't know. If the pain was enough to take me out of my coma. And then they finally got the bleeding stopped after an hour and a half, and then I went right back into it. But moving forward, so finally it was like February 17th, I think it was. So my surgery was February 2nd. February 17th, I'm still in the ICU, Wake Forest Hospital. I had moments of waking up, like when they pulled my intubation tube out, either the day before or earlier that day. I remember waking up and even having a conversation with the technician who took it out. And then I'm back out again. So I could have been up, like, communicating with people, but I don't remember it. I'm still really pretty sedated. And I finally came to enough for a doctor to say, Mr. Griggs, welcome back. Do you know where you are? And I said, yes, I'm in Mexico.
As a joke, or you really meant that?
No, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason for me. This is like, so I'm telling you everything that actually happened physically, which has been told to me. I don't remember any of that stuff. What I do remember is what I'll tell you next, which is everything that happened while I was in the coma. And so because the last couple of days in my coma, I was in Mexico. There's a reason for that. And I'll get into that too.
Shut the front door.
This might be a part 1 and part 2 for you guys. I don't know.
We can. We'll do
We
it.
sure can. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, this is so good.
You got me started. I'm not going to stop.
Please don't.
Yeah, please do not.
So I said, Mexico. And he's like, no, you're in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, at Wake Forest Baptist Hospital. Okay. Do you know what year it is? I said, yeah, it's 1992. And so Kelly's over there going like, my husband has brain damage. He's going to have his car. I'm going to have a card pass out. He just says things he doesn't mean. Forgive him.
Apologies.
But it was just, there was all this stuff. So anyways, at that point, I'm awake. I'm hungry. I want to eat.
I want that quarter pounder.
But I have no idea what's happened. I have zero clue. I thought it was the next day, maybe. I didn't know. Yeah. Well, I think I had an idea because I knew, based on what I experienced in my coma, that something had been going on for a period of time. But I had no reference, no time frame. I remember looking across the room and seeing them, like, somebody brought, like, chocolate sweets for Kelly, and I was like, I want a piece of chocolate. And my mother-in-law was like, you can't have it. I said, but I want it.
And so you still knew everybody, though. You knew Kelly, you knew your mother-in-law.
I did, yeah. But at the time, though, there was no way they were going to let me eat solid foods. Only liquids, because after everything I went through and how, I was down to 128 pounds. I didn't know it. I was skin and bones. Had to learn how to walk again and all that stuff. But, you're so weak. You can't swallow or doing that stuff. So at IVs, getting nutrients and stuff, and then liquids as needed. So later that afternoon, they transitioned me to the cardiac step-down unit, which is a regular cardiac floor. And so I was there for about 5 days. And during that time, really things started to come back. I started to remember certain things, like certain conversations when I was in a coma. Kelly was filling me in gradually to everything I went through. She didn't want to overwhelm me. And I was able to reconnect with my kids on the phone a lot. And friends from in town would come in to see me. But we kept it kind of light because I still couldn't walk. I remember when I finally was able to lift my arms, to rub my nose. That was a big deal. I couldn't go to the bathroom on my own. I couldn't do any of that stuff. So during those 5 days, it was a matter of getting my strength back, getting me cleared to actually start to eat solid foods. So I had to take 2 different tests for that. I failed the first one. The second one I was able to pass. but also getting me ready to transition me to a rehab unit, which is also there in the hospital. And so during that week, I got a little stronger. I was able to actually get up. I think that last day before they transitioned me to the rehab center, I was able to get up with a special walker and take some laps and move around. But it was incredibly hard. I was exhausted because, again, I had no muscle left. And it was during that week, that was probably the toughest week because I was coming off so many of the medications that were in my system. I was starting to remember things. It really dawned on me just exactly what my family went through and how hard it was on them. But then also, I was trying to reconcile everything I experienced and trying to make heads or tails of it. And I was relaying all of this stuff to Kelly. I said, did this happen? Did that happen? What was it? What was I dreaming? What really happened in reality? Some things I dreamed about really happened in reality. And I mean, it was like, how would I know these things? So it was a lot of crazy things. But then when I finally got in the rehab center, it was a Tuesday. They got me checked in. I had a wheelchair that I could scoot around in, that Kelly could scoot me around in. And still wasn't strong enough to walk. But if they held me, I could take a step or two. So I get in there that Tuesday. I finally get some real regular food. And I'm just excited. I got a big room to myself. And my rehab's going to start the next day. And so the next day I went through, it was not physical therapy. It was, what was the first one I did?
OT.
Yeah, occupational therapy. To basically, I need to take a shower. I need to brush my teeth. Figuring out how to do that. And so after that was over and I did some other stuff. I rested. And then my physical therapist, a girl named Kelsey, came in. And, then you get protocols. They still had to have COVID masks on. I couldn't wear. I said, I'm not going to wear mine. I got to breathe, guys. So, but she would come in and she said, all right, you ready to go? So I said, sure. Got me in a wheelchair, took me down to a place called the gym. And basically it's a really, really long room on the unit. It's got rehab machines on both sides, big, long tiled floor. There's markings on the floor. And it was filled with people that had strokes. There was a burn victim. Accident victims, all sorts of things. They would come up there for rehab. And so she pulls me in there and she parks my wheelchair at the far end of the floor. And she says, I'm going to get a walker for you. I'm going to set it in front of you. So you just put a walker there. And we'd already practiced this. And we kind of, 1, 2, 3, stand up. So they had a strap around me too they could hold on to. Count of 3, she got me. I stood up and I grabbed the walker. A little unsteady, but I'm good. She goes, all right, we're gonna walk as far as you can. I don't know, 20, 25 feet. Kelly's walking the whole time with a wheelchair behind me, just in case I got too tired and had to sit. But I walked all the way down to a stopping point, turned around, sat down for a minute. Kelly's talking to me, Kelsey's talking to me. Then, you ready to go? Yeah, I got my breath, went back down to my original starting point, sat down, catching my breath. Kelsey's talking to me again, and she said, so when you go home, are you going to have a walker? I'm like, no, not a chance in the world. She said, okay, you don't need it now. She folded it up, put it in a stack, grabbed my belt and said, let's stand up and let's go. And I did. She pulled me up, stood up, and I started walking. Now, it wasn't easy at first. Kelly was still following me in the wheelchair. Kelsey had my arm and stuff, but I walked on my own. And then they had some little stairs to climb, took a couple steps. What's the hardest thing I've ever done? They even had a car, the shell of a car in there. You could practice getting in and out of car doors. So over the next couple of days, I'm starting to do these things. And that first day of therapy, I remember I came back, and a little after lunch, I was wiped out. I remember taking a nap. Woke up that afternoon, just kind of figuring out, what am I going to do the rest of my day? Because they didn't want to overwork you, right? And knock on my door, said, come in, and it's Kelsey. She goes, hey, I had a cancellation. You want to go again? I'm like, yes. So I did it again. So basically, I wound up having to double up on my therapy every day. So I don't know if there was a set in stone goal for me to get out. I think initially when I went to the step down unit, it'd be nice to see you go home by Easter. I get now to the rehab unit, I'm like, okay, beginning of March, maybe. There was a date written on the board, like early March. So I started doing everything I could for the next week. I would do multiple sessions a day. In fact, I'm in there for a week. The next Tuesday, which I think was the 27th, I walked an hour and a half without the strap.
Oh my
walked
goodness.
all up and down that hospital, outside, everywhere. We just went in. Kelly and Kelsey were with me the whole time. We just walked everywhere. And got back to my room, and the case manager came in, and she said, so Ms. Griggs, how do you feel about going home tomorrow? I said, I love the idea. She said, well, there's nothing else we can do for you. you graduated. You're ready to go home. So the next morning before they discharged me, I did go through one final session with my therapist. We went through every little station that we had done previously just to mark my progress, because I have to do that for the work. And this was very encouraging, humbling, kind of braggadocio for me to say this. But at the end of that, she said, "You're the only patient I've ever had that's ever met or exceeded every expectation in therapy." And I'm like, well,
You're like, that tracks.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't like it here. You're a wonderful person, but
I want to go
don't ever want
home.
to see you again. And so that was what drove me. You know, my family drove me, all that kind of stuff. So came home and just began the process of getting back to what normal is and gaining weight and trying to get healthy. And will I be able to go back to work? What's that going to look like? And so that's still a process. I mean, of course, I went back to work a couple months later on light duty. So I did go back to work, and then summer happens. So we're 4 months removed from the surgery. And that last few weeks of the school year, I was feeling a little bit malaise. I was like, I'm pushing it. That's why. But I would run some mild fevers. I'm like, oh gosh, what's going on? So we go back to Winston-Salem. My youngest daughter plays lacrosse. She had a travel tournament there. So we're back home. We're right near the hospital where I had my surgery. We're staying with my in-laws. And I spiked a fever. I mean, high fever, got uncontrollable chills. I'm like, dang it. Went right to the hospital. Turns out a really good friend of mine is a physician assistant there. I mean, I grew up with this guy, did his wedding. He was there and he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I told him, he goes, "We're going to take care of you." So they got me admitted, did all these blood cultures, and it turns out that I had infective endocarditis, which is infection all over my heart. It
Could not
was
catch a break.
I know.
it was a form of a staph infection, and so and it was probably because my chest is open, but plus I'd had COVID, I had my gallbladder out, so I had several portals of entry for a possible infection. So now I'm back at the same hospital for 10 days. They ran nonstop IVs in me, nonstop antibiotics, trying to find the right mix. They gave me one that made me feel like, I said, listen, I'd rather die than take this one. I eventually told the doctors, I'm not taking it anymore. Dr. Khan came up, we actually had an argument about it. And I said, I don't care. I'm not taking this godforsaken medicine. He goes, that's fine, whatever. But they found, they sent me home with a PICC line. So they put a line in here. So I went home and I had 24-hour IV through so Kelly would change it. I taught my kids how to change it. So they would change the bags if Kelly wasn't around, because I couldn't do it by myself. And then after that 6 weeks, they took the PICC line out and they put me on antibiotics, Keflex. So I take a form of Keflex every morning and every night, pretty much for the rest of my life. Just because they can't risk that coming back. And I also go see a couple times a year an infectious disease doctor, just to stay on top of everything. Right now, everything looks good. I mean, there have been some other mild complications. Like they left the wire in me because they didn't want to pull it out, which is not uncommon. It was a pacing wire attached to my heart because so much had gone wrong. Like, if we pull this wire, it could bleed, we could kill him. So they closed me up, left the wire. Well, the wire's trying to migrate out. It actually popped out of my body several weeks ago.
Yeah.
Shut up.
And you should have seen it.
So we had a doctor clip it, went back in. So we're just waiting for it to pop back out again. So
Wait, like literally popped out
You
of
just
your...
trimmed it. Trimmed it off.
We were actually on an anniversary trip in Charleston. I just got out of the shower, and this site, they'd operated on the site back in September because it had like started bleeding and stuff. And so I went back to a football game at Wake Forest, saw my surgeon, Dr. Khan. He said, everything's going. I told him about this. Let me see. So I pulled up my shirt at the football game. He said, I think that wire might be trying to come out. So I went back to the hospital a few days later. He took an x-ray. He saw the wire. He cut me open. Turns out, he said the wire was not trying to come out, but had some infection in there. Cleaned it out, sewed me up. I'm good. A few months later, back in this past February, March, started oozing again. I'm like, oh my gosh. Went to see him. He goes, I still don't think it's the wire. So I said, fine. So I came home. It's oozing some more. Skip a Band-Aid on it. We go to our little getaway in Charleston for a couple of days. I just got out of the shower, and Kelly being the nurse, she goes, let me take a look at that. So she looked, and I bent down, and a little wire went, popped right out. And I was like, I stood up, and it went back in. I'm like, did you see that? Let's see if I can do that again. So I kind of pushed and popped right back out. So it was like a little party trick I could do. But we had plans that night, so I called my surgeon, called my doctors, put a Band-Aid on it. So when we got back to Wilmington, a local surgeon in town, he saw it, he clamped it, kind of pulled on it just to see if it would it would come loose. It didn't. It's still attached to the heart. Now, I'd already pulled on it too, some tweezers at the hotel. I didn't tell her. Got it about an inch out.
Oh my gosh.
So he clipped it.
And you knew this was attached to your heart when you were pulling?
Because when I pulled on it, I could feel the heartbeat in it, and I was like, okay, I'm done. So
I just had to mess with it for a second.
I may have pulled on it twice just to see if it, but so yeah, and it was still attached. So now moving forward, if it does migrate out again, they'll find a way to take it out. They just, we don't want to cut you open again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We know it's there now. We know it's close, but we don't want to cut you open. So if it does migrate out, there are ways, kind of like a tension mechanism to pull on it. Because when you have heart surgery, these wires are connected to your heart. And after they close your chest, these wires stick out of your chest. And what they're for is if your heart goes into an abnormal rhythm, they have a machine nearby that attaches those wires that put you back in a normal rhythm. Mm. Once you're out of the woods after a day or two after surgery, they come in and they pull the wires. So you take a deep breath, they might give you a little shot of Demerol, and there's a controlled way to slowly pull the wires out. You can feel a little bit of pain, but it's not bad. So I've had that done a couple times. So that's not that big of a deal. When it does decide to migrate out again, that'll be kind of the principle. Mm-hmm. They'll pull it out, probably sedate me, kind of pull it out, nothing major surgical.
So was it an accident that they left it in there?
No. You have the option as a surgeon. Most of them choose to pull them because you don't want something artificial. But keep in mind, it's stitched to my heart, the outside. Mm-hmm. I've already gone through some of that stuff. I've had bleeding issues. I've had my kidneys shutting down, all this stuff. And he's like, if I pull that,
yeah,
am I gonna rupture something? He's like, I
you
don't
did
want
talk
to do
about
it.
this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's not his normal practice, but these wires normally don't migrate out either, but they do for me.
Patient by patient.
Yeah. This is just wild.
Mm-hmm. So this is all, and really, honestly, Kelly could have probably laid this out much better than me because she lived it. Mm-hmm. The recovery part was on me, but really it was really on her because she wouldn't let me quit either. She's amazing. But I go into surgery, and February 2nd, 2023, I count down 10, 9, 8, I'm out. And from that moment on to the moment I wake up, I had nonstop dreams. Obviously, first couple of days of surgery, it wasn't good. So I'm fighting hard. Mm-hmm. I am tired, but voice of the Lord was said, fight, keep fighting, keep fighting. Mm-hmm. So I did. And then the next thing and this is the one I think that I kind of hang my hat on as probably the most intense experience that I've ever had in my life.
Thanks for being here with us today. If something resonated, maybe a sentence, a silence, or a story, hold on to that. If you felt seen or stirred or simply curious, we hope you'll join us again. Until then, stay open, stay tender, and remember, there's always a seat for you at the table.